everyone.
Good afternoon.
That's what I'm talking about. Hi, everyone. My name is Doris Martinez, and I am the Intercultural Center Leadership Coordinator. I am also part of the MLK Planning Committee. So first and foremost, thank you all so much for coming and participating at this year's MLK Week. I have the absolute honor and pleasure of introducing our second presenter of the day, Sam Al-Khalili. He is actually a professor here at Highline in the BTech program. He is an instructor and also a coordinator, and he has such incredible knowledge in regards to what's going on in the Middle East, specifically with the whole ISIS crisis that's going on over there right now. He is very much deeply rooted and connected with different organizations here within Washington State, and will be talking to us about debunking a lot of the things that we're hearing around in the media in regards to ISIS and Islam in particular. So without further ado, Sam Al-Khalili, he'll be talking about Middle East crisis and Islamophobia.
Thank you all for showing up. I wasn't expecting that many people, but, well, here we go. First, I made a cheat paper because I'm trying to remember things on my own and it doesn't work sometimes. I think H got to do something with it. I'd like to thank Multicultural Affairs Program for giving me the opportunity to present on none better day than Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Dr. King's message, as we all know, was to live in harmony and peace and have equal civil right to all citizens. I would like to make it very clear, I'm not a Muslim scholar. Islam is my faith and I practice it every day. My presentation is based on research, many research on books that I have conducted and read. There is so much information I collected, but I really tried to condense it to that many slides. But I think we have about 37 slides. Can you hear me back there okay? Because I'm recording myself, I want to make sure that I'm being heard as well. I put that on my Facebook, and I got a ton of requests that should be recorded. And so I brought my own camera to record it. Thank you all again for showing up. I tried to do that same presentation last quarter, didn't really happen, but I'm glad we were able to pull it off today. So our topic today is going to be mainly on the Middle East crises and mainly about ISIS. I'm not going to call them ISIS. I'll show you the reason why I don't call them ISIS. When we get to that slide, I'll explain it. And my real name is Osama. If you're scared, there's the door right here. There's an exit door back there. And also about Islamophobia. My first class I taught, I always like to tell the story. After September 11, was September 22nd of 2001. That was my first, there was a semester system in California. So they always saw O Al-Khalili. They never understand what O stood for. So I wrote my name, Osama Al-Khalili, in the class, and I pronounced it. 5 people walked out of the class. It got better. The following semester, only 3. So, but I was a popular instructor anyways. Our main topics, so I kind of have grouped them before except the last one. We're going to talk a little bit about Islam. I hope you had the chance to see the 3 amigos earlier today. They were awesome. Then we talk about ISIS, aka Daesh. That's why when I address that slide, I tell you why we call them Daesh, not ISIS. And also we have 11 slides about Islamophobia. Some of those slides have pictures, so it shouldn't take that long. So Islam, as you've heard this morning, is Abrahamic religion. What does that mean? It's concise and correlated to. One thing I need to let you know though, English is my 3rd language, so sometimes I have what they call language clashes. So my pronounce of other languages different. I mean, some of them were different, so excuse me. So concise and correlated, the mural correlates of religious with the tradition of Jewish and Christianity. We're so close to Jewish and Christianity. They all believe and worship the same God. Allah is an Arabic word of God. So even Christians in the Middle East, they call Allah. So don't get upset with them, because that's our God translation in Arabic. Islam is a monotheistic religion. Islam asserts Adam, Noah, Sulaiman, Moses, and Jesus, peace upon all of them, as prophet and messenger of God. And we're going to see a lot, I'm going to say this quite a bit when it comes to our prophet Muhammad. Islam is a liberal and secular religion. In a sense, it respects all other religion, as stated in the following verses in the Quran. To you be your religion, and to me my religion. That's in Quran verses 109:6. So the verses also serve tolerance to all other religions. Our prophet, he actually lived that example when he started spreading his message in Saudi Arabia. And he lived among Christians and Jews. And he actually was like the mayor or the statement of that city that they lived in back then. He was very trustworthy and very honest, and they all believed in him. He was like more a neutral person between the Jews and Christians. All creatures are equally in every respect. There is neither caste system nor class system in Islam. Male and female are equal and have equal rights. Although some of the messages nowadays is not being delivered that way, but that was back then, and we should practice it this way as well. Free will is well placed in Islam, yet all power is to God. Human rights and all beings' rights are protected and promoted in Quran, all book of Islam, of course. Quran is not only book of do's and don'ts, but also way of life for peace and prosperity to all beings on earth and beyond. Most do's and don'ts are traditional, and agreement are encouraged in the Quran. There are no single entity that we follow. Like there's what do you call that? The Pope. There is no Pope in Islam. There's a lot of scholars. There's a lot of interpretations of the Quran. They all varies. They're what we call fatwa, where the scholars agree upon something that we go and obey by. But it's not really. There's no particular place that we usually follow. Okay. And it's really meant that way. There are about 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. That's a lot. And approximately 23% of the world population is Muslim, and it's increasing. And you can hear there's a lot of discussion about the Shia and the Sunni and the differences. I'm not going to discuss that. That will take us an entire day. Shia Muslims constitute about 20%, actually less than 20% of the world Muslim population. 65 of Muslims, of all Muslims are denominational. There we go, I got it. Muslims. What does that mean? What does that mean? Again, if you saw the previous statement, it's mostly what our belief is directly with God. So we don't really should follow anyone. That's what that is. It's just between our action and our interpretation of things is just between God and us. So the scholars actually come in and do the interpretation for us if we can lack that kind of intelligence. Islam is personal religion. It has neither clergy nor religious authoritative system, and it promotes personal relationship between God and humankind. Alright. I know there are a lot more about Islam, but I gave you a kind of brief what Islam is all about. Then we're going to start talking about those things that the words you hear all the time in the news, the caliphate. What is the caliphate? Caliphate means successor. It really came about after our prophet was to die, and he was trying to find a successor to take over his position. That position, just take the lead of being a Muslim. So successor is elected follower who to govern according to the Quran and the practice of the Prophet's peace be upon him. With the death of the Prophet, the Muslim community has faced with problems of succession. There were 4 caliphs after the death of the Prophet. Then after that, things start going a little bit away of the practices of Muhammad, of the Prophet Muhammad, and the teaching of the Quran. So, and that's really sad. But this didn't happen until like 100 or 200 years later. You also heard about the Sharia law. And there's no real book about the Sharia law. There is no one Sharia law. Everybody talk about the Sharia law and how bad it is Sharia law. Again, let me explain to you a little bit about the Sharia law. Sharia law is not a holy law. And we want to make that clear. but a man-made law made of interpretation of verses from the holy book of the Quran. Now, there's a lot of Islamic scholars, they kind of disagree and they clash over that terminology, but really there is no one Sharia law to follow. There's a lot of sectors and cultures that interpret their own Sharia law based on their own culture, not just on the holy book and also the practices of Sayyidina Muhammad or the Prophet Muhammad. Many sectors of Islam have their own interpretation of the Sharia law. Some of their interpretation contradict the Quran. And this is when things get a little hairy. If this is contradict the Quran, why do you follow it? So we really have to, we always, as a Muslim, have to refer back to the Quran because this is the book we should follow, not the scholars or what their interpretations and what they think it should be. Sometimes the resources are falsely attributed to the Prophet, peace be upon him. There is I usually attended lecture every Friday with one of the scholars here. And I take my son, and he talks about how some of those scholars actually do things or say things really contradict the Quran, and he really proves it. So for us as a Muslim, we have to verify and clarify that things are being said before we do it. Okay? Jihad, that's another misconception of the word jihad. When I tell him a jihadi, what do? You get scared, you run away. It's not. It's exactly what that is. You have the misinterpretation of the word jihad. The jihad is mean the word jihad, struggle or striving. Struggle within themselves. I'm struggling to survive, so I'm a jihadi within my own rights to survive, to make sure my family are adequately living, they have the support, they have food on the table, and so on. So I'm a jihadi in that sense. Jihad got nothing to do with war. But for some reason, it's been interpreted as a war kind of indictment or something to get started, to start something that is not necessary. There is no concept in Islam to certain Muslims to wage war for propagation of implementation of Islam. Oh, no, I missed one. Let me go on first. Term jihad of war, fighting or combat in the name of Allah is never used in Quran. There is no concept in Islam to certain Muslims to wage war of propagation of implementation of Islam. In Islam, war is only allowed in defense. If you read the Quran, you see that. Jihad is not a violent concept, but it's a struggle against oneself. So that's what pretty much is. That's what jihad is. Jihad could be not a word kind of terminology, but what it is a social, it's a more social issue. Now, terrorism in Islam, and something I attended when we were talking about Islamophobia in 2007. I attended an FBI discussion about terrorism, and it was really, really disgusting because they listed all the terrorists, but every time they talk about an event, they put a Muslim face right next to the slide. Although even that terrorist event was not done by a Muslim, but there was a Muslim picture. So they always associated terrorism with Islam. I will come to talk about that. This is really disgusting. Terrorism has no place in Islam, a clear forbidden Islam in light of teaching of Quran. Suicide attacks terrorism is clear forbidden in Islam. Quran state practices of masculine and murder of entire town or country or tribe is also forbidden. We say in the Quran, if you to murder an innocent person or innocent child, you are a murderer, and you're not going to go to heaven. And you'll be prosecuted. So the predominant theme in the Quran is forgiveness and peace. So let me give you a little story about our Prophet Muhammad. That's how peaceful he was. That was during the days he was living in Mecca. And there was one of his relatives, he really hated them. So he asked one person to go and spit on him every time he passes by. So for 2 weeks, that person spit on our Prophet Muhammad for 2 weeks. So what do you think? If I spit on you, what do you do? Yeah, at least you spit back on me, right? If you don't have a fist fight with me. You're not going to win, but you try. But at any rate, what does Sayyidina Muhammad do? I say Sayyidina, this is like my master anyways. Our Prophet does is just wipe his face and keep on going. He didn't do anything. He did not retaliate. One day, this person did not show up. He was not at that corner, so he spits on him. So he asked, what happened to that individual? He was sick. He was very, very ill. So our Prophet Muhammad went to his wife and asked her to make a dinner meal. And she asked him, why? He said, just make it. I need it. So she made the dinner meal, and he went to that person's house, and he was feeding him to get wealthy, get healthy. So this is how our Prophet is. And we're not really living by his examples. Let's be clear, okay? Most of the people who do terrorism are mentally sick or brainwashed by self-serving politicians and misguided and self-proclaimed clerics. I know a lot of people hate me when I say these things, but this is the truth. My people. So here we go. This is the topic I did a lot of research on. I have families and friends, and I've been talking to a lot of people in this area. People actually from Syria, from Iraq, from, my sister lived in Iraq. I have families in this area. I'm from Lebanon originally, so I kind of have some kind of credibility to talk about that. And I have families in Egypt. We have families all over. And I started talking to them, so what the hell is ISIS? Never heard of ISIS. And we're going to talk a little bit just about ISIS. So ISIS means Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Now they changed it to Islamic State, but we're not going to call them Islamic State. One of the original names is also ISIL, and this means the Levant, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Levant is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. Some Palestine, not all Palestine. Or Israel. I'm sorry. We should be, after that, three amigos, I should say that. There are many factions of ISIS and many titles, but we will call them Daesh. What is Daesh? There's Daesh. The capital word of Daesh, point out, is an acronym of some sort. And indeed, if we single out the beginning letters of the Arabic names of ISIS, which is Dawlat Islamiyya for the Iraq or Sham, we get the Arabic Daesh. So we get those letters, we get this word right here, and we can get to translate it to Daesh. But in Arabic, it's really very similar to stomp on and humiliation. This is why ISIS don't like to be called Daesh, and this is why we love to call them Daesh. So we're going to call them Daesh from now on, all right? So that's humiliation because they don't follow the doctrine of Islam. The history. And this is really, I started reading a book, I said, oh my God, this is nothing new. So what we learn about the new history of ISIS is really started in 2005, 2006. But it actually started in the 1930s. The idea started in the 1930s. And it lasted for some time, till 1976. Till finally the Arab world got together and Abbasids actually was the leader of the Arab coalition that actually finished ISIS at the time. Not ISIS, just kind of, we call them Carmathians. Okay, we finished those, it was the exact same concept, same kind of concept of Khalifa or Khalifa to control the entire region. How did it come about ISIS right now as we know it? Am I going too fast? Am I okay? Everybody's okay? So the first we call them Mujahideen. I don't know how much you know about the Mujahideen, but we really supported the Mujahideen. United States, especially CIA, was one of the biggest supporters of the Mujahideen back then. Why? Because they were fighting Russia for us. That's why. We gave them weapons that they finally used against us. We gave them support, everything. We gave them everything to fight Russia. And they did. So we supported from 1979 to 1989, almost 10 years. We did that. But we left them alone. After Russia is gone, and that's the biggest mistake probably in the United States did, just left them alone. Communist leaders, after the depart of Russia, and the United States was also left Afghanistan alone, the communist leaders continued to rule the country after the Russian till 1992. So they still communist rule till 1992. The Mujahideen overran the government and took control. But chaos and fight control has devastated the country because there was a lot of parties at the time, like here, Taliban, Al-Qaeda. There was a lot of parties that actually derived from that era that still exists today. How did they come about? So it's only focused on ISIS. We're not going to focus on all of them. There's about 10 of them. There was too much to talk about. Al-Qaeda came to power, the strongest faction in the region, have tried to infiltrate surrounding Arab countries but failed because they had strong presidents at the time. Their worldwide network to gather intelligence, worked with rich individuals from the Gulf countries for financial support. Osama bin Laden became the leader in 1993-94, that was still unknown, with the goal to drive away Western influence from the region. That's not just necessarily the United States. There was like France and Germany as well. After the United States invasion of Iraq in 2002, Al-Qaeda had infiltrated the country to sabotage and overthrow the American-supported Iraqi government. And we'll discuss how this particular issue made the ISIS as strong as they are right now. Okay? Many groups have been offset of Al-Qaeda, like I had the list of them. I can't even think about them. If you can email me, I'll send you those lists if you're interested. First, we've heard of the Daesh in 2005. In 2006, they had a plan to take over Iraq and the Levant. They came to full power during the 2001 revolution in Syria. I don't know if you can see the relationship in there. When there was a war in Iraq, they showed up. When there was a war in Syria, they showed up. Okay? So there's a relationship in here. And that's how they utilized this relationship to get strong. So recruitment tactics. Removing Saddam Hussein from the power in Iraq shifted the power from Sunni to Shia. And if you know anything about ISIS, ISIS think all Shias are infidel or kuffar, and also some of they think more kuffar than the Christians. Okay, they think more infidel than the Christians. That's how ISIS are. And the support of Iran to Lebanese Shia Hezbollah to control Lebanese government, Hezbollah intervention in Syria conflict. The conflict in Syria had the support of the Bashar Assad, who is actually the president of the Syria, who is an Alawite Shia party. Western influence and influence in the region. So you can see they use these tactics to recruit. You know, they use these tactics to recruit. Now there's they're trying to cut off what we call a belt from Iran to the Mediterranean Sea, which is Lebanon, to have a Shia belt, they called it at the time. And that's what they're trying to stop. But again, during their activities, they're really making a horrendous amount of actions, like killing and destroying a lot of things. So, are they Muslims? Yes, they are. But do they follow Islam? No, they don't. They don't follow Islam's doctrine. Please be aware of it. The things they do, they don't follow Islam doctrines. Okay? They just really brainwash and they're following wrong people. That's what they are. So Daesh versus Islam. I heard a speech in California, and it kind of copied it word by word. It was a scholar who was talking about Daesh in a church. So I copied his presentation. I kind of added those stuff to me. So the first column, what Islam is, and the second column, what Daesh actually do. Islam is to create a peaceful civilization. Daesh, they destroy civilization. And we've seen that, we've heard that. How come they went to Iraq, they went to Syria, and they start really damaging some shrines, some really thousands and thousands of years old shrines and so on. It's really unbelievable. Islam to be part of the human family. We live to coexist. They don't. There are selfish tribes that hunger for glory. That's all they want, glory and control. To protect life because they believe in God and family values. That's what Islam is. Daesh have no concern with human family. They call them infidel, kafir. Everyone has to be killed. This practice has killed more Muslim than non-Muslim. 87% of the people who were killed by ISIS are Muslims. And people don't even realize that. 87%, and this number is increasing. Islam, Jews, and Christianity are people of the book, the scripture. Our responsibility, where we are empowered to defend their synagogue and churches so the word of God can be heard. Because we all preach the same God. They destroy shrines, churches, and refer the infidel mosque, Shia mosque. So those mosques, they are being destroyed completely, sometimes with people in it. Islam came to establish the rule of law, where Daesh, the rule is by iron fist. And we've seen that happens as you hear it in the news media, which is our news media does a really good job with that. Okay, I always have a problem pronouncing this one. Let me try it. Egalitarianism?
Good.
Did I do it right? Thank you, Jonathan. Which is no hierarchy between people and God. Okay? There's no hierarchy. We're all equal. This is the first thing our Holy Quran says. Daesh, on the other hand, members receive preferable treatments, food and water, healthy care, no right to other people, force them to leave. No, I have to take this back. Other people were actually trying to leave. They assassinated them. They killed them. They're not allowed to leave. The Prophet came to be mercy to humanity. They are cruel by beheading people and spread their fear among people. Response to the Prophet, Islam is response to the Prophet who calls to coexist. They lure kids to fight and die while they sit on their throne of safety, and they do that a lot. Again, all this because of the brainwashing. I've talked to some kids, it was really scary. The leaders are servant of the people and accessible to them. Even the old Khalifa, they were accessible. They have like an open door policy. If you have an issue, go and talk to them and they'll try to solve it for you. They hide and live in the riches. So this is why you don't see their leaders. And there are some news lately about their Khalifa actually is not a real Muslim. But I'm not going to go into that one. This is really conspiracy about that one. Islam was the first to give women equal rights. Even in our Quran says that. Women have no rights and are treated equals to animals. And when in our culture, when you call a person an animal, even in Islam culture, that's really demeaning. It's the most demeaning way. Here, when you call a man an animal, he likes it. So yeah, a little joke. I have a friend of mine, and Hamar in Arabic means donkey. When I called him Hamar, he got really upset. He wanted to fight me. I said, okay, you're a donkey. I said, okay, I'm okay with that. So you can see the differences in culture. Our Muslims' views of Daesh. Vast majority of Muslims see Daesh for their real terror form. Vast majority of Muslims see Daesh as thugs that are hungry to control in the name of Islam. They are perceived as mafia who strive in war-torn conditions where there are weak governments, just like Iraq and Syria. And now in Libya and they almost did it in Egypt as well. Vast majority of people who are fighting Daesh are Muslims. Now, the United States recently has been sending drones to kind of destroy their strongholds. But actually the ground fightings are Muslims, especially if you heard about the Kurds lately. 20% of the Kurds' armies are actually Muslims, trying to find out, because they need to survive if they're going to destroy them. So many Muslim women have joined the fight against Daesh. I don't know if you heard about this, or a Jordanian pilot, who's a woman pilot, actually was in the news about 6-7 months ago, and actually, I don't know, I'm in college, but I have to say it anyway. And some of the Fox News hosts, they told me, oh, boobs on ground. Yes, they can see that, you've heard that one, huh? So you can see the meaning, and because it doesn't matter whether it's a woman or not, because she's a Muslim. And it really, you need to learn those things on your own. Where Daesh is now, the Ashleenists right now, there are a lot of places in Iraq and Syria where are oil, because that's how they're surviving. All right, that's how they're surviving. And they have what we call cells, sleep cells, a lot of places, but they kind of help them to network and grow. And they are growing, not necessarily from Europe and the United States. A lot of people, like you're one of the European, you said 10,000s of extremists moving from Europe to help Daesh. No, they counted them. There are almost about 1,000 worldwide that are not from that region, that are actually from Europe and the United States. Only 1,000. But again, our news media exaggerate everything. How are they funded? They sell crude oil in the black market, even to the Syrian government. The Syrian government buying their own oil from them. Isn't that interesting? And then in return, they sell it to Russia. Or they trade it to Russia for weapons. They looted banks and financial institutions, selling stolen artifacts in the black market, possible funded by many wealthy extremists from around the world. And there are one more thing, but I did not kind of verify it. So they also sell like morphine and heroin to kind of fund their cause. The countries has been suffered the most from Daesh and its group are from the highest casualty country to the lowest. So Syria is the most devastated country by ISIS at this time. Then Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Lebanon, of course. Lebanon is mainly in North Lebanon. As a matter of fact, they broke out a fight yesterday, and some other countries. Now, if you don't live in these countries, you should not be worried about it. Unless you want to move into those countries, then you have to start thinking if it's the right thing to do or not. Can we destroy them? Yes, we can. But the problem is, it still exists. Because the environment they live in is still there. Okay? So we have to change the environment. A lack of central government, lack of education, poor and unhealthy living environment, seeing Western influence as a devil's work. Extremists will continue to live in any culture. This is a fact. Even in our culture, we have a lot of extremists. I'm not saying just Muslim extremists, but other extremists. The best solution for Middle East is to provide a healthy and educational environment. This is from my perspective. Okay. Sure, we can weaken them. We can or break their leg if we want to, but slow them down. In the meantime, we have to educate and provide some health care. Keep any external influence out of the regions. That's going to be a challenge. Now, this is a bit about ISIS. I know because we didn't talk about this Islamophobia, I want to give you some time for us for questions and answers. I'll try to answer as best possible way. I don't know how many of you have seen this. Is this a true statement? Who said no? Why it's not a true statement, sister? Exactly. Is this? Yeah. I'm sorry I'm picking on Fox. I don't know if you guys viewers. I don't watch Fox. But they do this all the time. They say it so loud. Not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. Now you see it? Does that make sense to you? All terrorists are Muslims. This sums us all up. You understand? That's how they put fears in our heart. All right? Please be educated and read well between the lines. All right. So what's Islamophobia? We had something about 3 years ago. You were in charge. They had an what did we do that? Building 6. The multicultural fair students. They had let's talk about Islamophobia, and I said, okay, I'll go in. I sat down. It was a really great discussions. And one of the students just stood up. I don't want to be converted. I'm not here to be converted. I said, who's trying to convert you? Do you understand? This is the concept. It's like Islam is here to convert you. It's not. It can coexist. It's up to you. It's up to you if you want to be converted or not. But we're not going to try to convert you. But if you want to be converted, come and talk to me. I get good deeds for that. So, an exaggerated fear, and this is how it really is built on. Hatred and hostility toward Islam and Muslims that is perpetuated by negative stereotypes resulting in bias, discriminations, and marginalization and exclusion of Muslims from social, political, and civic life. I'm so proud of myself. That's the first time I read this paragraph without any mistakes. Let me give you an example that happened to me yesterday. We have what we call Muslim Lobby Day every year during the Martin Luther King holiday. So almost 600 Muslims went to Olympia yesterday. And I'm going to go to the good stuff. So during the break, I went to get a coffee, and I had my badge and said CARE, which is, I forgot what that CARE is, about Islam something. And one of the persons goes, oh, are you part of this group? I said, yes. Are you a Muslim? I said, yes. I said, how come you don't wear a turban on? How come you don't have a beard? How come you don't look like them? And my son was next to me and said, Dad, let's just leave. He said, no, we're here to educate. But she was sincere. But that's what she hears on the news. That's what she sees us on the news. Muslims, boom, boom. That's the first thing you see. You understand? When you see a Muslim woman, she has to sometimes has that full hijab on with covering her face. That's not true. There are Muslims like sisters here. There are Muslims like my sister. She doesn't wear hijab, but she still prays. That will be her, and what we call during the judgment day will be judged by God, not by us. You understand? So that's got nothing to do with it. Even my own sister, I don't care. So yeah, and I said, not all Muslims wear turbans. Actually, very small numbers of Muslims wear turbans, very small. And not all of us have beard. Okay? This is from a person as a non-Muslim. Let me give you a story from a Muslim side. An ESL student has a lot of problems. I'm not going to name names. And he goes into the class and he goes back to, you're Christian, you're kafir. You're going to be in hell. That happened here 2 quarters ago, 3 quarters ago. And they didn't know how to interact with the students. They were really scared for a lot of reasons. Not because he's going to go and blow himself up. He's just scared that he might do harm for someone else, right? So they asked me to come and intervene, mainly to be a translator and kind of make some sense out of that situation. When he saw me and he knew, well, he first, when they're trying to make an appointment with him, and they're all female, as you know, people, most of them are. I'm stereotyping now. He refused to meet with a woman. He absolutely refused to meet with a woman. Then I said, see me in that, let him know that I'm going to be in that meeting. Sure enough, he was there 10 minutes early. And when he knew I was a Muslim, he goes, are you Sunni or Shia? I said, oh, that's a good way to start a conversation. You already want to, put me in a certain, I said, I need to know who you are so I can address you. I said, it doesn't matter. I'm a Muslim. So all fashionable Muslims, we believe in one God, we believe in one book, we believe in one prophet. That's enough, good enough for me. But he didn't want to know if I'm a Muslim, Sunni, or Shia. Then he goes, after that long conversation, finally diffuse the situation, he goes, brother, you're really good Muslims. You should have a beard. So why do I need to have a beard? Because you're a scholar. You should show people you're a scholar by wearing a beard. I said, I don't have to have a beard. It's amazing. So yeah, that's a true story, by the way. So when Islamophobia actually existed before 2001, before September 11. Well, not to the extent we see it today. Of course, after September 11, it just really exploded. And there has been a fear about Islamophobia for a lot of reasons. Research showed that the United States identified more than 160 Muslim American terrorists. In the last 15 years, only 160. Now, that's not much. If it's 1 year, then you should be scared. In 15 years, that's not much. I'm going to show you more figures from Gallup poll. I know you guys trust Gallup more than you trust me, so there it is. They asked these questions to all major Western countries. Do you believe Western society respect Muslim society, or do you believe Western society do not respect Muslim society? Look where the United States is. So this is the issues. Why? Because it's really our media. I blame the media 150%. Okay? I'll blame the media 150%. I was a CNN follower for a long time. Then I said, hold on a second. What I'm hearing in my country is different than what I'm hearing here. You understand? So the news is not completely correct. You need to verify and clarify before you believe in it. By watching other news. Okay? A lot of the media, I watch Russian news. Oh, yeah. Different perspective. I watch Canadian news. I watch other countries' news. Because you drive your own truth from it. Alright? I'm not trying to tell you not to watch Fox. Definitely don't watch Fox News. But something like that. But drive your own idea or concept or the truth from those news you're hearing. There will be communality, and that's what you believe, the communality. Alright? There's another one. I'm going to read you a few statements. The statement was, in general, most Americans are prejudiced toward Muslim Americans. Sorry, I know some of my friends here are Jews, but that's what they believe. Even Muslims within themselves, they say that. Religions, Catholics, Protestants, and Mormons. So you can see it's really high. We're so high. That's Islamophobia. There's, if you're interested, I can show you that resource. There's about 15, 20 pages with pictures and with charts and data. Many studies show how overwhelming terrorist attacks in the United States and Europe are not Muslims. Terrorist attacks that were committed by Muslims over the past 5 years in Europe, 5 years, only 2%. So who's doing the 98, other 98%? Go to Europe and look it up. I don't care. I'm showing that only 2%. In 2013, 152 terror attacks in Europe. Only 2 were religious motivated, and not necessarily Muslims. But why do we only hear about Muslims making those terrorist attacks? Think about it. So, here again, the rise of Islamophobia began after September 11. A shift in mentality has associated Islam religion with war, and I just stated to you it's not. And the violence has associated Muslim with terrorists. FBI did it. When FBI in 2007 showed us that video, they were talking about terrorism, I was so upset, I stopped them and I told them this is wrong. You know, put an American terrorist there. Put Ku Klux Klan for crying out loud. Only showing a jihadi. I have to say that word, but you know, you get my meaning. Many of the major media in the United States have only covered the worst of Islam's and Muslims' actions, and this is true. Do you know? Now, I hope I presented my case that I don't like Daesh, right? But you know, Daesh do help others. There were videos on YouTube and Facebook how they actually delivering food and help to others. They were doing that, but we don't show that here. Why? Because we want to keep their name back. Okay? I was really surprised those 2 videos, but I only found 2 videos. I don't, God knows how many. But yes, I saw beheading. All right? If you search for it in Arabic, boom, you'll show it. That was a very awful thing to see. Please don't. If you don't have the stomach for it, don't look for it. We do not see Muslims around the world have been lynched and mass murdered in other countries. Have you heard about that? Have you heard any other countries really murdering Muslims? Honest. I know you heard. You did. You see, why not? It's in major news everywhere else except the United States. Watch. You're in 2000. Have you heard of this person? What did he do? He killed 77 people. Because they're associated with Islam. Alright. In Burma, have you heard what's going on in Burma? Thousands of Muslims have been killed and lynched since 1938. Thousands. What we're doing about it? Well, President Obama said, don't do that. Alright. Israel, 2013. Now, I want to make clear, I'm a part of the Jewish Voice for Peace. There, we have distinguished between Zionism and Jews. Alright? I believe in Jews. I don't believe in Zionism. If you hate me, that's fine. Israel 2013 State Department report on terrorism. There were 399 acts that our State Department said that. Acts of terror committed by Israeli settlers and Palestinians, Muslims and Christians. That's huge. It's only 1 year. How come we don't hear about that? We discovered it. This is what the United States State Department actually showed. But there are more. Okay. United States and FBI study 42% of terror attacks were carried out by Latinos-related groups. Drug dealing. Now, drug dealing. When you talk about drug dealing, what happens? Oh, Latinos. Really? See, you're always stereotyping, right? Followed by 24% perpetrated by extreme left-wing actors. Oh my gosh, left-wings. That's liberals. Right. What we don't hear about, okay, I'm a liberal, I'm going to talk about liberals, also about conservatives. How about those conservatives, they bomb those clinics for abortions? We don't hear about those. Those are terrorist attacks, right? And as 2014, I don't know, if Jack here, I hope I keep my job next week. And as of 2014, study by University of North Carolina found since 9/11 attacks, Muslim-linked terrorism has claimed only 37 Americans. Only 37 Americans after September 11. Okay? That's 15 years. But there are 190,000 Americans who were murdered by a terror attack. But we only hear about this. We don't hear about this. Obviously we do. It's just like one couple of paragraphs. But here will be big headlines. Right? Islamophobia exists because our news media. All right, that's what happens. I like this one. You remember the ground zero, the mosque they're trying to build? There's another story, but I like this one. Do you have that thing for Islamophobia? Anyways, we're almost towards the end. What do we do now? Please know, not all terrorists are Muslim, nor are all Muslim terrorists. Please keep that in mind. There are some terrorist Muslims. Only 1% maximum. All right? Out of 1.6 billion. So don't ignore the other 1.5 billion or so, right? Talk to Muslims and to understand the religion of Islam. There are a lot of Muslim sisters and brothers in here. Talk to them, all right? Talk to them, conversate with them, all right? Like we did this morning. Change your source of news and media. Don't listen to Fox, easy. All right, listen to another source. You know, I really don't listen to news media. I don't listen to our news media. I go out at CNN. I go out at Fox a long time ago. I get my news from the web. There are a lot of good sources of news that can actually allow you to get good media or good coverage. Verify and clarify. If you heard about something bad and I felt trapped into this, I put it right away on my Facebook, and one of my friends said, "No, this is wrong. Take it out." So the answer, please verify. Some of those things are hoax, are not true, they're not fact. Do it from other resources. I have a lot of followers on Facebook, so I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. And if you're really interested, read the Quran. There are in English, there are in other languages. We're not trying to convert, we're trying to understand it. Okay? Again, if you want to be converted beyond, come talk to me. I think I'm done with my presentation. I'll try to give you within 15 minutes. Any questions? I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just having a quick question in my mind that I don't know if you want to speculate on. Why do you think the media wants to keep only the negative images?
Oh, you want to go there? All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna be honest. There are latest studies that at least 10,000 convert to Muslim Islam every year. You don't hear that. That's scary. There are more in Europe. So, and we are growing not just by offspring, also by conversions. A lot of converts to Islam. There's a great group of in Seattle that I'm part of their converts. They kind of feel in a no zone. They're not supported by Muslims. They're not supported by their own family. They don't know where they are. So we support them. Okay, that's one reason. And really, this is really one of the main reasons. Another reason is we're growing. Our numbers is growing. European countries, if you know, they have 1-2 child per family. We have 5. You know, I know one of the families in South Lebanon. They have 42 members in their family. All right. So it was, yeah. We grow fast. Is that a healthy? Healthy? No, it's not healthy. But again, we need to educate ourselves. Did I answer your question? No? Really? What do you want to hear?
So are you saying that the fear is that there's growing numbers?
Yes.
So the majority will be the minority?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's my question. There's studies in Europe that saying within 30, 40 years, the majority of Europe will be in Muslim Islam. This is not true, but that's a scare tactic. But we'll have a majority in there. Okay? But that was my answer, yes.
So, you eliminating the point that, simple point that, these use fighting Muslims as an excuse to control resources. Is that a factor at all? Or is you saying it's just simply, you put Muslims in the media to make them the bad guy, so that, because they're increasing in number, but not a factor that it's also a tool and a mechanism for the American public to use it as a bias or an excuse to fight war over control of resources.
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't. There's a lot of reasons. It's what we are in today. Okay, there are a lot of reasons. First, after World War II, after World War I, Islam during the Ottoman Empire was strong. But they diffused as they broke us up to control us, pretty much is. And especially with the oil now in the mix, they want to have control of the oil. Right? I know. And I don't know. Are you happy with the gas prices are so low? There's actually a war because of that. Oil war, and that's why the gas prices is very low right this time. Saudi Arabia is just dumping oil because they're losing our customers because we found other resources. It's actually for our, it's really for our United States benefits to move on and to stay in control and stay in power. Okay? China is doing it now, and they have different tactics, more economic control. Russia is doing it. Russia, I don't know, I'm really worried about Russia. It's trying to go back to the old of Russia and Union, which is really scary, Soviet Union. Okay. Other questions? Yes? Yeah, every society has terrorists, yes. Yeah.
So why does it have the sound of terrorist?
Islam? What do we have terrorists in Islam? I mean, well,
I don't understand why would we have it.
the concept to go backward instead of moving forward. You know, what I'm understanding for having a caliphate, you really united Muslims. Okay, but it's not working because we're so far apart. No, what they're doing is not actually what you call it sellable. They're not selling the right product. Okay, and they're doing it by spreading fear and killing people. And this is not Islam. You don't have people by killing or and beheading people. That's not Islam. That's why we don't believe in it. But that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do. And again, just to keep Western influence away from the old mentality they want to live in. Let me give you an example. That's kind of a joke. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you that example. It's a joke, but I'm going to say it. So one of those extremists actually was taking a taxi cab, and they want to go somewhere. I don't know if you've seen that one or not, but I'm going to say it anyways. So the taxi cab was listening to the radio, and the extremist goes to him and goes, "Why are you listening to the radio? Back in the old prophet days, we didn't have radios. Turn it off, infidel." So the guy turned off the radio. Right? Then he got his cell phone, talking on his cell phone. The extremist goes, "Why are you talking on the phone? Back then there was no cell phones. Why are you using cell phones?" And he started calling them names. The guy looked at him and goes, and he pulled over on the side and he started telling him to get out. "So what do you mean, get out?" So back then we didn't have cars, we had manuals. You understand? So that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on. Yes?
Yeah, so I would like to ask, why don't you think that the phenomenon of persecution of Sikhs is part of the phenomenon of Islamophobia?
Thank you. This is the topic. After 2001, one of the Delhi store, a Sikh-owned store, was mistakenly by being a Muslim because he looked like a Muslim. They had the turban, they had the beard, and he was killed. And his entire Delhi store was burned down. And they were assassinated that way. Now, I was part of the Seattle Police Department Council for Sikhs and Islam and Arab. So we met, all of us, and talked about this. Sikh also as being mistakenly as a Muslims. Okay, but also, have you guys seen that? What's it? That movie, Indian movie, $1 Million. What is it? $1 Million, whatever. $1 Millionaire. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. At the very beginning of that movie, there's coalition between Hindus and Islam in that area. I don't want to go over it. One of my best friends is from India. But again, this old mentality, we really need to educate ourselves. So Sikh are persecuted mistakenly because they're Muslims, also being discriminated. But so is Islams. Okay, those are Muslims. Okay, so did I answer the question? Kind of, sort of. I'm trying to be a politician. Yes.
I have a question from a student. I try to be a critical person who fact checks as much as they can. People say all sorts of weird things about Islam all the time, the letters, for all sorts of reasons. Given that I'm an English speaker who probably won't learn Arabic anytime soon, do you know of any English Quran translation that's reliable? Also, what is the relation between the Sunnah/Hadith and the Quran?
Ooh. are the Quran in English and also with translations, not just with translations, also explanations about the verses of the Quran. It's all in English. My wife has one. That was our gift from when we got married. The second one, the difference between the hadith and the Quran. The hadith is what hadith is man-made. Please put it in perspective. And there are so many hadith. There are at least 4 major hadith. All right? They are man-made. So because they are man-made, they're bound to have errors. Trust me on that. Quran is not a man-made. It's a word of God. There were. Do you have time? Okay. I'm going to say that quickly. There were institutions that were trying to discredit the Quran. There was many institutions in Europe. Not till lately they verified Quran as a valid book there's no deviation from it. Okay? Where hadith there's a lot of deviation. There's a lot of misinterpretation. They're saying that's what the Prophet did, but again sometimes the things that the Prophet did is not quite accurate, and this one but a lot of them have that same common sense. So hadith that's about the Prophet and what he's been doing. It's not the Quran. And sometimes there are interpretations of the Quran, but it's not correctly. That's the whole thing. Any other questions? That's a good question, yes.
Yeah, so you say the media is playing a great role of
Spreading hate and.
bringing hatred and all these things. So what can we do to educate them?
Thank you.
We don't really see the people around us, but the media is playing this.
Well, we need to be heard. A presentation like this happened. We have a lot of interfaith. The message have a lot. Mosques in here have a lot of interfaith. They're being preachers, rabbis. We always have that at least a year. Once a year, every mosque has that. So that's part of the interfaith. Just get involved. And be part of it. So that's what we do. And just spread the good word what Muslims really do. We know how to coexist. I've done it 25 years in California. I had no problems. I have no problems now. Okay, but it's really up to us how to do it. And if you hear somebody using foul language about extremists, ignore them. Don't associate with them, and you'll have the opportunity to explain yourself. So ignorant people, they will say ignorant no matter what. Any other questions? Yes, question there.
I don't know if it's a question, I just sort of want to bear on something you sort of mentioned, but when in passing.
Okay.
It seems like part of what the question is with Islamophobia is that people are saying that Islam motivates people to do these terrorist acts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one good response to it, both domestically and internationally, is to point out that people do these acts that are being talked about across the board of all different religions, whatever, but it only gets called terrorism if they're Muslims.
That's right.
In the U.S. discourse. And one thing, like, comparing what happens, for example, the guy who shot up the theater and killed a bunch of people during the Batman movie was never called a terrorist. It's talked about, if it's white guys, it's talked about in terms of mental illness, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a lone wolf guy with mental problems. Even Breivik, who you mentioned in Norway, who was like on chat boards with white supremacists for many years before he did it, it was talked about as his individual psychological problem, even though he's clearly working with people with a political stance.
How about the college shootings? How many of those happened last year?
Yeah.
So they don't call them terrorism.
But if it's a Muslim, then it fits into this discourse of
Exactly.
terrorism. But you can point, I think one way to answer it is to say, are you talking about what's being done, which is of course terrible in all these cases, or who's doing it? Can we be honest, like what does terrorism even mean? Let's look at the meaning of it and how it's really inconsistent. And then overseas, I was living in Syria before the war started, and I really appreciate you unpacking the history of Daesh and how despicable they are, and that we should remember this throughout that. But it's also important to remember that not any sympathy with them is despicable, but that they came about in a situation where there was a lot of insecurity in the wake first of the Iraq War and then the situation in Syria. I mean, you mentioned this, but just to, again, sort of think about this, these same things happen, we call them different things. There's a really insecure situation, and when people are that poor and insecure, they tend to get, it tends to result in violence on the ground.
I agree.
And also like the U.S. favored you mentioned the U.S. was favoring a very Shia-centric government, and Sunnis didn't have any protection in the whole region. So people turned to desperate measures for protection.
Sure.
So it's just a thing that it's like, people can understand that motivation. It doesn't matter to explain it what religion those people are. But if they're Muslims, they get told.
Sure. That's absolutely true. Thank you. That's educational. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. Bob beat me in basketball.
I
That's
made
like-
him on Friday. If you were at Forest, we played pig. Anyway, very quickly, about 1,000 Americans are murdered by other Americans every month in this country. 99% of those people, of the murderers, are not Muslim.
That's
okay?
right.
But that's what we hear all the time. As soon as a Muslim, back to Sean's point, as soon as a Muslim does something, then, here we have this big problem. But I think that's how we need to think of it is, what goes on in the news. We don't hear a non-Muslim killed someone today. No, what we hear, as soon as that happens with a Muslim, it's a big deal.
There's an agenda. The exact agenda, we don't really know what it is, but there's an agenda to label us as terrorists and keep people scared of us. And don't be scared of me. I'm a very nice guy. But seriously, again, if you really have questions about Islam and what Muslims do, talk to a Muslim. That's the best way. Not necessarily Muslims are wearing hijab or having beard and turban on. There are a lot of Muslims who are not that way too. Talk to them, all right? They're some of them a lot more educated than I am. We come to Islam. Thank you, Doctor. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Actually,